Okay, update time. It's another weekend. I am working here in the studio. Let me show you what's going on now. So you see here, we've got the room. We've got all the ceiling rods that I believe I told you about are up. We have even more insulation material as I bought some more. We have all these stained wood pieces. These are the wall panels that will eventually be filled up with Roxol and absorptive on one side, reflective on the other, and will swivel back and forth on hinges for the wall so I can kind of tune the room a bit. Lord willing, that all works out. Over here, we have all these panels. They're hard to see. It's kind of black on black here. Using the 7-ounce duck canvas stuff that ends up being really great, a lot cheaper than the Guilford of Maine stuff, which is great, but just I didn't want to pay that. These are the panels that will hang on the ceiling. Let's see if do I have any that are finished somewhere that I should. Oh yeah, these are. Different sizes. Note here, I don't know if you can see that in the relief there. Man, it just won't focus. Reminders that I need to get a good camera. Anyway, these are little hook eyes that I screw in. They will hang from little S hooks that will hang from here. And then using different lengths of this little tiny black chain here, I will be able to create different angles, which will look cool with the lighting. I promise I'm going somewhere with this. So here's a printout from Google SketchUp, and I colored everything in with matte pencils. It's still fun to color stuff, even in this day and age. And the direction of the arrows indicates where I will have it tilt. It will tilt down toward the floor in that direction, and that's where I will bring the chain in. So I'll have kind of this, hopefully pretty arty looking, cool use of panels. And I've chosen, since I'm covering most of the ceiling to break up the reflection from the hard concrete floor, I am choosing to use this crazy pattern to kind of break up the reflection a little bit. And I'm only choosing 2-inch panels, one, so that they're light and easy to hang, two, so that they're not as completely absorptive as the 4-inch Roxol, which I would normally use, as much as that would be. So hopefully all that will help. I'm very excited. I do have a few hung up. It's kind of pointless. I don't know if you can see that one. That's like a 1 foot by 6 foot panel, and then there's its counterpart over there. I have some other ones hung too, but you really can't see them because of the black on black. So once I get it all done, these track lights will do different colors and things, and so hopefully it'll kind of play off that. Or I may have to realize that I failed terribly and I've got to come up with some other solution to make it look cool. But that is one thing. Let me show you something else. So you heard me talk about the revolving wall panels. It's been quite a bit of engineering. It's actually taken a couple of weeks, to be quite honest, to get stuff together. My initial plans were done because I had a creative mind, but I didn't have a lot of the engineering experience I needed. So this is what I first came up with. Let's pretend that this is my wall panel, right? So here I would have 2 of these, right, which would stick out from the wall. This would be mounted to the wall. There would be its cohort on the other side, on the top of the panel, and this would mount on the wall vertically, like this, right? And it would swing out from the wall, and then it would have 360-degree hinges. You can see here, this is the base part of the 360-degree hinge. A ball bearing goes here, and then the top part of the hinge. And that would mount in. The hinge would mount into the panel there, and it would rotate. It would rotate around 360 degrees. So I could flatten these against the wall with the reflective or absorptive side, and then move it from the wall, swivel it around, or even leave it out from the wall and kind of angle it so that I could do different things. One of the things that I really wanted to make sure of with this room, and I don't want to make this video too long, but one of the things I wanted to make sure of with this room is knowing that I would kind of commit to the ceiling with all my fancy design and everything. I knew that beyond that, I didn't want the room to become too dead, but I knew I was going to need more panels to control reflections. How to do that? I'm already planning on, a bunch of diffusers there on the back wall, on that wall, to kind of help break up but not lose some of the ambience. So I wasn't sure if I was going to need a lot of absorption or not. I wanted to have the ability to kind of tune the room later, or tune it for specific things I'm recording, much in the same way that you would use baffles. Point in case in point. Point in case, is that a thing? Let's make that a thing so that I'm not wrong when I said that and that's not a mistake and I don't have to edit it out. Case in point, these things right here, these arms, these just got slotted steel square tubes at big box store, because I'm making a prototype here, and got gate hinges, big old gate hinges. And my whole genius idea, right, was there we go. I make these arms, bolt them together, mount this on the wall. It's totally going to work. For a smaller panel, it might have. However, I was foolish because I was not an engineering student and didn't realize that nothing was tying this bottom hinge to that top hinge. Nothing vertically tied it, which meant this hinge could move this way, the top hinge could move this way, and since the only thing holding these ball bearing hinges together was the ball bearing and the gravity, the weight, the pinchingness of the pinchingness. That's another term. Let's pretend that's the correct term to use. That's the NASA term. The force required to hold that together just wasn't going to be enough. So the slightest vibration or something like that taking it out could move it in such a way where the ball bearing would fall out. And if the two arms went this way and one went this way, which did happen with one of these larger test panels, it wasn't a pretty sight. All right, idea 2. There actually is plenty of light back here to see, but not enough to do a good video because we just have kind of the single light behind this panel here. This is my crawl space. Also, the trash dump du jour. Actually, none of this is trash. This is all of that is insulation, leftover building materials, and tools that I didn't have room for when I was doing all sorts of stuff with the floor, and I haven't put back yet. So it's a big mess. This will get cleaned out, though. At any rate, what I did is I built. First of all, this is one completed wall panel. Please ignore all the little dents and scratches in the stained wood. I'll take care of that later. This was my test, and it's been through a little bit. So this side, I don't know if you can see that. That's masonite or hardboard, just like what you find on the back of a clipboard. You know, so it's a pretty thin material, maybe not even a 1/4 inch, and that ends up providing hopefully a reflective surface. And then on this side of the panel, if I can rotate it around. See, I'm rotating it already. It means something's working. I have 10 ounce duck cotton fabric. I was trying to match the red in my hallway, but this is the closest I could come, kind of a wine color. Hey, I love red wine, so that's not a big deal. So that's the absorptive side. Inside, of course, is 4-inch, I think 4-pound density rock wool. And you can see that the wood is just 1x4 with these little finished pieces built on it. The whole idea, though, after all my gate hinge and steel arm thing fell apart. Again, I had to go to a big box store to buy just enough of something to make a prototype before I started putting in big orders with actual industrial suppliers, which I have no experience with. So I just bought aluminum this time because they didn't have the steel in the size that I needed. I decided not to go with stuff that had holes drilled at intervals. Just a solid piece of like 8-foot aluminum. So it's square, 1x1 inch square aluminum tubing. It's actually not that thick at all. Maybe like I don't know, what is it, 1/16, 1/20, something like that. And the whole idea was I would build arms like I had before, but instead of gate hinges, I would use L brackets here, because I do not weld, L brackets and corner braces and bolts to hook all this up, right? So I would create this large straight piece that would run the entire vertical length of the panel and then some, and then the arms would come out. I'm making a reverse C shape frame. So why did I mount it in my crawl space? Who cares what it sounds like in my crawl space? Well, because I've got a beautiful wall in here in the studio. I don't want to mess with that yet in case I did something really wrong and put a bunch of holes that I then have to fill with acoustic sealant and everything to make sure I don't break up all the green glue and all that kind of stuff. So mounting it back here where I already had exposed studs made a lot of sense because I could test the weight, see how it held, leave it up for a few days, proof of concept, and then move to mass production. I am so freaking excited that this works. I think this is the way we'll be going. Still a bunch of work to do on it though. Update laters. I was working out in the hot sun all day, staining these panels, putting polyurethane in these panels for the mix room, and looks like pooped myself. Yeah, my whole can of dark walnut stain that I love so much that I had just bought tumped over and has now made a beautiful Rorschach test on my driveway. And fortunately I was able to have enough to finish everything that I needed to finish, so tiny miracles. Hey, since I was showing off panels the other day, I'll show you how I make them. Start with this. We're in the tracking room right now, but starting with this is a 2x4 frame. These are some of the old panels that we were using over at Plethertone, the last studio where I was. They had been painted gray because the fabric we use is this Luterder stuff, the stuff you put underneath your couch, you know, that near the tag that says under penalty of law, do not remove, that kind of stuff. That's what used to be on these, and it was very, very light and let light and breath through, which was great acoustically, but it meant that any of the blonde wood would show through as well, so we had to paint them. I hated that stuff over time because it had all these little fibrous things that would come off, and it just kind of looked ratty over time. All the frames were made of 2x4s, and I sanded and stained and wood puttied any cracks and stuff. I'm not going to show you too close because, you know, I know how the sausage was made. And I'll show you the next step here. Now here's the panel after I stretched some fabric over it. Notice that all I have done, this is like 7-ounce cotton duck fabric. Apparently duck, I had to look it up. Duck is some Dutch weaving method or whatever. Essentially it's like canvas. It's like a very light canvas. It passes the breath test and everything. You can get air through it. So acoustically it should be fine. And it's a lot less expensive than the Guilford of Maine stuff. It's probably about, I don't know, 7 or 8 a yard at this point in 2022. At any rate, this is great. I'm stretching it across. Why am I not wrapping the panel? A lot of guys that do these kind of wood frames will wrap the entire panel, and then they'll put nicer looking wood on the outside of that frame. But to me, that adds weight. If I'm going to be hanging these on the wall, it's a lot more work. So I have friends that have come up with cool methods of stapling the fabric from underneath here, and then it comes up the side and allows the wood to be free and wraps everything. I always feel I get wrinkles that way, and it doesn't look good to me. I had a producer friend that they had this great method that I really liked, and I kind of adapted it and tweaked it for myself, whereby I will staple the fabric here using this handy electric stapler. Do yourself a favor, do an electric stapler. Do not do the manual one. You'll kill your wrist. So many staples, so many panels. And then I actually cut the fabric off with a little rotary cutter. You can get those at like Joann or any kind of sewing store place. And once that is taut, pull it taut as I'm stapling it, I then will put over it these pieces over here. Got them all stained as well. Now, of course, it's a lot of work to do all this, but I figure I'm doing this once, and I want this to look good. This is my place, right? I want there to be a vibe. I want it to feel inspirational to me. So see these little 3/8" pieces? They will simply go on here like this, and then I will have a cross piece. I will nail these in with little finish nails with my little frame, not frame nailers, my little finish nailer. And that's gonna keep the sides looking good. There we go, using the little finish nailer. Got everything looking good, right? No wrinkles, looks nice, like a little drum head. And now I'll flip it over and stuff it with rock wool. We have rock wool in. This is 4-inch deep 2x4 sheets of rock wool. I believe it's 4-pound density. Fortunately, the frame was made to accommodate perfectly 2 sheets without having to cut anything, which is awesome because sometimes I do have to cut things. Why this instead of 703 or 705? First of all, it is cheaper. Second of all, there are some charts you can find online that talk about the frequency absorption at various frequency ranges, and Rockwool seems to do a better job, especially like the 4-pound density, 4-inch thick, or even 8-pound density if you're really looking for some low-end absorption, because a lot of times that's where your trouble's going to be. So this goes down to, you're going to have to double check me on this. I think it's like down to about 250 or something like that, which is great, because bass traps are going to handle a lot of the rest, like in a mix room and that kind of stuff. So that's why I like using it. Okay, and here's the backside. Now I have used a different material, weed block, that you can just pick up at Lowe's. It kind of looks like our canvas fabric, but it's much thinner and easier to work with. And this is the kind of weed block, weed block. It's the kind that's got like a brown underside and a black top side. This is a little sturdier than some other weed block that I've seen that is more like the Lutridur. It's got the wispy fibers and everything that'll come off of it. So you could almost, if you were really on a budget, you could probably get this stuff to cover your panels. But I wanted something a little bit nicer. I wanted to, again, trying to balance that Guilford of Maine versus, hey, I just found some burlap. I hope this will work. But this works fine for the back. And what's more, this is actually really easy to cut. I can just use this simple razor thing here, right? And of course, first after having stretched it, which more so I just, I'll just pull like that with my hand, and then I'll staple. Then I'll use this little kid's hammer to staple down. I bought this for my son ages ago. Look at that, build and grow. He didn't do too much building, but I've done the building part. So yeah, this actually works perfectly because it's just about the right size and has a good weight to it, and it'll help me keep from like denting stuff or tearing the fabric. And then this weed block is really easy just to cut with a knife like that, right? It comes right off. Awesome. Okay, there we go, finished panel. Just finished giving it a quick vacuum with my shop vac to take off any extra little just table dust or rock wool particles, but there we go. It's looking good. And then I'll just mount this on my wall. Okay, here we are in the mix room, having finished a lot of these panels. Of course, things are an absolute huge mess. I have stuff all over the place, but check it out, how they're finishing out. Man, that looks classy. Love it, love it, love it. Kind of popping the colors there. And of course, this is what they used to look like right here. These Lutridur type things. You can see all the fibers starting to come off of it and everything. Okay, update. Let me show you a couple things. First of all, got mass-loaded vinyl on all the doors. So, thick rubber on both sides, right? That'll help with sound transmission through the weakest part of the wall, which is, of course, the door. Then, check these out. I still need to vacuum and everything, so don't look too close, because, see, they're dirty. But here we go. This is, I know you can't see it right now the way this is working, but I just pulled that out from the wall. Got a wall panel there. I want to rip it around. There we go. There's the reflective side, made of hardboard. Right, and once I get it set where I want, I can either leave it out at an interesting angle to create different reflections, or I can use the hinge part here. I'm really doing a bad job of demonstrating this. Right, and there it is. So the only thing that now has to be done, got to put my little projector screen here. I don't know if you see, I got to hook up the projectors and stuff up there, and then this wall. This blank space here, that's where all the Skyline diffusers are going to go. Sweet. Hey there. You are looking at a bug, inspecting one of my diffusers. This is near the very end of the process. So much spare time, anything that I could muster, went into the tons and tons of man hours, cutting down all these different 2x4s, everything that I had left over from the construction, to mill, quote unquote, these square dowels. What do you call, can you still call them dowels if they're square? Squowels, maybe? Square dowels? We'll call them that. So, yeah, and, you know, I did all these by hand. You can tell, like, there's some imperfections here. It doesn't quite, you know, line up 100%. Who cares? It's going to work acoustically. It's going to be great. They actually look pretty cool, especially when they're in a wall together with a bunch of other brothers and sisters. And I'm out here today because I'm going to route out the backside so that I can hang these on the wall. Real quickly about these, if I have not explained, a lot of times we'll hear these called Skyline diffusers because, you know, from the side, kind of looks like a Skyline. But these are actually, I believe, Quadratic diffusers because they use a version of the Quadratic formula to come up with the math for how you should use these. And of course, it's breaking up the surface, so sound hits these. All these are like tiny little 1 inch by 1 inch walls that scatter the sound off in tons of different directions at a fraction of the amplitude they were previously, thus diffusing the echo that would normally be heard. And it helps create a more even balanced space where you're not hearing direct echoes, which absorption panels do, but absorption panels do it by kind of sucking up some of the sound, causing the sound waves not to bounce back out into the room. And that would make it deader. This is my attempt at maintaining some of the ambience of the room while still maintaining an acoustically beneficial place to record. I'm running out of adjectives to figure out that make me sound smart. So I think the math suggested that I use, based on the length of these, ends up kind of determining the lowest frequency that it can handle, and then the area, the surface area of the front of these determines the highest frequency. So the smaller, the higher frequency they go, the taller, the lower frequency it can absorb. This, according to the math, gets down to about, will help disperse down to about like 550 or so hertz. And then the inch by inch will get to, so I think it was like 6,300 hertz, so 6.3, 6.8K, somewhere around there. Should be fine. I'm really looking for it to sit behind the drum kit and really help with kind of cymbals and some of the oomph that comes from that, and spread it across the room to be captured by room mics, hopefully. So yeah, my math suggested that I have 12 inch, 9 inch, 6 inch, and 3 inch, and 0. because it assumes I would be putting it on a backing like this. Well, I'm not going to put it on a backing because putting it on a backing, especially plywood like that, adds a whole bunch of weight. And these are already heavy. Each one of these is like 10 pounds. I love the fact that I actually lifted that up as if that somehow demonstrates to you, because you'd be like, oh yeah, I know Chris can't pick up anything greater than 10 pounds. So if he can pick that up, it's got to be 0 to 10 pounds. Yeah, so I went ahead and put in these little spacers for the zero points, whatever, because I know I'm going to route out the back end. This is what the back end looks like because I did not glue it to a backing. And any of the 0 points that I put spacers in on the interior, I went ahead and moved up about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, just so when I'm routing out the back, I don't cut through them. And I will have a French cleat system that goes here that I'll probably do a little video to show you later and hopefully edit together so it all makes sense. This is going to be one of my end pieces, which means that I have with a speed square, I have created the line that I need to route to. So I will route out all of this side up to here, and then there will be a matching French cleat inside here that will grab the one that's on the wall, and it's gonna hide it nicely. You won't be able to see it from this side. And yeah, so it's about to get really dirty here, and everything that comes out is going to look like this. This has been my driveway for the last few days. Perhaps I will launch a series of pillows with all the sawdust. One last thing before I make a complete mess, I now have my jig on here. I wanted to show you how I measure this out, because since this diffuser is one in a row of 7, each row will have 7 in them, that will be 3 rows tall. I could either make them as one large wall, which is how I've seen a lot of guys do it online, but that assumes it's gluing it to a backing, or at least you're gluing everything together, like making a 7-foot long wall. I wanted these to be modular, so that I could adjust if need be in the future, kind of the unknown, that I could take some of the variables out of that. But in doing so, if you have things, and these have been made by hand, so the edge of all these, it's fairly straight. I've been using a guide to build these, but it's not 100% straight. And so if you're cutting just based on measurements you're taking with each one of these, you could end up where one hangs like this, one's up here, one's down here. And so I really wanted to be exact as best I could. So I made these guides that will work with the router here. So here's my router that I'm going to use, an inch bit, and then did all the math to figure out with the plexiglass guide that's in here, I can hold it up here against the side, and then I can come all the way to here, and that's going to route through this channel that I need, and then use these tie straps to hold it down. Okay, so you notched out the wood and everything for the straps, so it'll hold tight. And yeah, I'll show you what it looks like after we're done. Okay, and here it is after the fact. Leaves a lot of this little wood hair everywhere. Yeah, worked pretty well. I will chisel out these so I have a straight corner. But yeah, that's the process. And then I'll glue a French cleat piece in here, and then the mating piece will be on the wall, and this will slide in, and that'll be kind of the end cap. Okay, now I'm back inside. Just wanted to show you real quick what happens once I routed out the back end of these diffusers. You see I've got some hardwood in here, some poplar actually, that I've cut into that French cleat shape, right, 45-degree angle there. Right now I've just screwed it in to make sure the fit is correct, and then I will glue it down and screw it in. And this is going to mate with a part that's over here. We already see these assembled. Isn't that gorgeous? So there are 3 rails, this being one of them. You can also see there's a French cleat from the side. There you go. And that fits this. This will be up on the wall. These will all hang. Eventually I will kind of stain them with like a spray stain. There's no way I'm going to wipe that in to every little crevasse there. It's ridiculous. But hey, that's what we're doing. Here we have it. The worst board game in the world. This is my rig for making my quadratic diffusers, or Skyline diffusers. It's a bit of plywood with some little 2x4 pieces here, and then later, after a couple tests and realizing I needed higher walls, I used these old pieces of laminate flooring. with some screws down here. I really wanted to be accurate. So these are kind of balancing everything out, making it perfectly 90 degrees. Measured it with a speed square. And then have everything drawn out. This is according to the math that I did on the computer. The computer did for me. I didn't do the math. And each one of these numbers represents the depth of the dowel that I wanted to use. And then in the evenings, usually, if I don't have anything else going on, I'll put on some Netflix or Hulu or something, just let a bunch of episodes of something run, have a glass of wine, as evidenced by the stain there, and man, just glue until it's done. It takes about an hour and a half to do one. Let it dry overnight, knock it out with a hammer the next morning, and on to the next one. To the very end, show and tell time. Look, lights. Now they haven't been fed around anything yet, but that's because they're going to this board that now hangs on the wall with these French cleats. I think I've shown it to you before, and I've routed all the wires in the back and cut holes through so it makes a weird constellation. And look, just to test, here is one of these diffusers actually mounted along with the hole that I measured out to host the light. So light shines through, it looks cool. Then these lights, well, not these, I've got a second strip that I'll be using. This is my test strip. But this will be going around the sides, which should disappear behind the diffuser. It's hard to do this with one hand. And it'll backlight everything. So awesome to see it working. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Ladies and gentlemen, just shy of a year of complete construction, and we now have this. Welcome to my studio! Woo! Let's check it out. Okay, I actually thought I was going to flip the camera around and use what should be a better camera for this iPhone. It's like an iPhone 6, so. But it turns out it doesn't use the light as well. So even though this camera is really grainy in these colored lights, I like colored lights, so we're going to look at these. Obviously, I have all of my track lights all programmed, which is killer. We've got these panels. See if I can back up and do this without hitting anything. It's so awesome that this place is clean now. We have these panels, right? Able to rotate around. Hard side, soft side. It's actually amazing because I can hear the difference when I do it. So this is going to be really exciting to start doing all sorts of experiments with the room. Obviously, we have all of our crazy ceiling panels. You can kind of see them right around there, angling and helping out with reflections. And then here it is. This is the diffuser. My crazy, crazy, super weird diffuser. Get it from this side so you can see it's kind of backlit. And awesome. And I love it because it killed the flutter echo as soon as I put it up. Then over here, it's like my little dance club. Love it. The little blue light you see at the top, that is a camera that will go up to the control room above. And then behind me here is my movie screen for my projector. So I can run Pro Tools or Inspiring Images or Violent Images or whatever the music needs down here. So, guys, thanks for sticking with me for this whole thing. I'll take you on more of an official tour once we get everything set up.